New kickoff rules implemented today into the NFL. Kicker will be at the 35. His teammates will be at the opposition's 40. The receiving team will line up at the 35-yard line. There are all kinds of different things that are encouraging kickoff returns, which used to be one of the more exciting plays in football, was completely taken out of everything as, 20%, 22% last year were returned, 5% of onside kicks.
Right.
Were converted, and they stole the idea from the XFL. And it's funny because, we all watch the XFL and we're like, damn, that rule would look good in the NFL.
Right.
And
Man, I sure wish they would have the transparency with the officials like they had in the XFL.
Yeah, so Eric Galko joins us now, Director of Football Ops and Player Personnel for the Shrine Bowl, but was a part of the team that came up with this idea. Eric, hey, thanks for joining us, man. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys.
So what were you guys thinking in terms of the kickoff? Obviously, you were trying to make those plays more exciting. What kind of went into the origin of where that idea came from?
Yeah, really our team was kind of tasked with making a 3-hour football game more or less and having every play matter. So from the punt to kickoff to getting rid of extra points, making it go for 1, 2, or 3, really every play had to matter. And the kickoff was by far the most challenging. And using a lot of talking to other special teams coaches, younger people, high school teams who are really creative in their offensive game plans as well as in kickoff, kind of led to this idea of hey, what if we kind of neutralize the point of contact and make this more of hey, let's skip the step where everyone's running on the field or building a wedge and creating a isolated, hey, let's engage at this point, not high impact, low impact, and let the returners make some plays too. So it came from a lot of testing, a lot of market research, and I think we're really proud of the idea that we came up with, and the NFL is using this concept, the XFL kickoff, without ever testing it. They tested every rule they've ever put in place for the last 40, 50 years. They are using this straight off of XFL film, and it's a credit to our team back at the XFL in creating it.
Yeah, I forgot to point that out. The teams on the 40 and the 35 can't move until the ball is touched or hits the ground, and I think that's going to be very exciting. And I think people that watch football that don't pay attention in the offseason will look at that and be like, what in the world is going on? Right, Babsy?
Oh, yeah. Well, and you guys, you mentioned they're implementing it without testing, but it's because you guys pretty much did all of the testing for them. And I know you guys had tested it and before you even put it in a live game in the XFL for at least 2 years. What was kind of the pushback during that whole process?
Yeah, tons of iterate. We used it with junior college players, semi-pro players, professional players, in practices and live game settings. And a lot of that tinkering was, where do you start the players on the kickoff and kickoff return team? Where's the kicker kicking from? What is the effect from using analytics, EPA, expected points is added, from when the ball goes out of bounds to go to the 35 or 40-yard line. So all the rules we came up with and the NFL is using really came back by data and trial and error. And we determined that, a 5-yard area for the kickoff and the kickoff a team is enough space that you can engage and have a real block without it being too high impact, but also still effective. It's also easier for the referees to officiate, and there's a whole dynamic there of how to officiate this play cleanly as a referee, that way NFL players and on both sides of the ball are not confused as well too. So a lot of that testing led to the operations of the play as much as it is where the ball can be after a return.
So I was lucky enough to fill in on XFL last year for ESPN, and so I got to see all of it up close and personal and obviously hear all the players talk about it. And by last year, everybody was kind of used to it and coaches had figured it out. But do you think that there will be kind of a curve, almost like a learning curve with this in the NFL?
I think there will be on the player side. I've got to talk with Coach Richard Hightower, who's the special teams coach of the Bears. He actually coached at the Shrine Bowl this year as one of our head coaches, and he and I spoke at length about this. And I could tell very quickly there was some real thought behind not only why to implement it, but how teams could do it uniquely. And one of the important parts of this play is that now special teams coaches are not all doing the same thing. They can really have creativity. We'll see very similar to how different offensive coordinators have different schemes in the run game. It'll be very, very similar to kickoffs. You'll see one special teams coach have a very different scheme than another special teams coach on a game-by-game and play-by-play basis. I think for the players, it will take some time because they're not doing it to the college level. And really, NFL or college players going to the NFL won't have any exposure to this besides watching it on Sundays, maybe using it in the new Madden that comes out on video games, and then probably at all-star games at the Shrine Bowl, and they'll get a crash course in it. So I think players will take some time, both this year in the NFL and even in future years. But I think special teams coaches will be really creative early on, and we'll see some really cool, funky plays that, again, look a lot like run plays and they do like former kickoff plays.
So I know a lot of the owners, coaches, administrators, everybody in the NFL wanted this voted on immediately because, honestly, it could change your draft pick. It could change your roster construction, right? I mean, this is that big of a change. Kind of explain how the return position changes with this implemented.
Yeah, the kickoff and kickoff return is about 10 plays a game, and we all watch football. 95% of those plays are just kick out of the end zone. So now you're adding 10 plays to the game. By comparison, the average NFL game has about 12 red zone plays. We hear all the time about NFL teams practicing red zone and so much, and so this is going to add 10 more quality plays that can have a real impact on your game, and that's going to lead to teams spending a lot more time on special teams. Again, probably twice as much as they had the last few years, because in the past it was just punt and punt return. Now it's punt, punt return, kick, and kick return are all going to be active plays. I think also you can change what kind of players you want on your team. So this play creates a very in-space man or zone blocking scheme, which kind of equates to like, all right, when you run outside and your tight end and your receivers are blocking or your fullbacks blocking, that's the kind of equivalent here. So I think we'll see more teams carry an extra tight end, maybe a fullback on defensive side of the ball, another linebacker or safety. It's going to really add and kind of a change how the back end of NFL rosters look. And we'll see a lot more really, really good athletes at tight end and safety and linebacker who maybe don't have a true NFL position. They're going to be kind of quote-unquote core special teamers in a big, big way now with this new rule.
I love it.
Eric Galko was part of the team that came up with the XFL kickoff rules implemented by the NFL today. Just kind of getting the backstory there.
Eric, you guys got anything else that's on the brink that you want to, drop on us right here that you're going to try out in the Shrine game or anything else?
Were there any other ideas?
Something that maybe got next that you thought would help the game
one
too?
idea that's kind of getting there in the NFL sense that we at the XFL have was the idea of the sky judge, which is a referee who can kind of overrule and basically do an instant replay without stopping the game and having complete carte blanche to do that. Yes. And that allowed the XFL to say, hey, if a referee has made a mistake, we're not going to judge him and call him out and make him review his mistake and go into the camera and everyone watches it. We'll let the sky judge just say, hey, you know what, got that one wrong, change it real quick. And what that allowed for is, again, far fewer replays, but also a much cleaner progress of the game. And I think the NFL is inching towards that, but that's probably the next closest thing that we at the XFL, that the NFL is going to have. I think we're still a ways away from getting rid of the extra point like we did the XFL. I think NFL teams are still going to clutch a little bit onto the extra point, but I think overall we'll see more and more of the sky judge, and again, more of the iterations that the XFL did.
Yeah, I love the idea of the sky judge. Does that mean that they can like throw a flag from the press box down onto the field? That would be good.
We can get creative. Eric, you also are the director of football ops and player personnel for the Shrine Bowl. Obviously, we're in Titans world right now, and the Titans have done a lot in this free agency period to kind of fill some holes, but just curious if there are any, prospects or maybe a target from the Shrine Bowl, a player that you know well that maybe the Titans will target.
Yeah, the Titans certainly will be picking at the top of the draft and likely picking a player who didn't go to any All-Star game, guys like Joe Wald or Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison, players like that. But I think in round 2, if they don't address receiver in the first round, getting a guy like Malik Washington on day 2 of the draft is a slot receiver, can kind of really complement DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Traylon Burks really, really well. He could be a returner, be a slot receiver. He jumps out. Edgerrin Cooper is a linebacker, Texas A&M.
Yeah.
So the Titans spend real time with at the East-West Shrine Bowl to interview him. A linebacker with a lot of versatility, a lot of high upside, a position that maybe that Titans defense wants to address. Those are the two guys that jumped out. But give the Titans and GM Rand Carthon a lot of credit. They filled a lot of needs in free agency. And now they can kind of use the draft, maybe after getting that franchise left tackle in the first round, can really kind of play the best player available throughout the draft.
Love it.
Eric, great stuff, man. Really appreciate the backstory with this new kickoff plan for the NFL. Thank you very much, man.
Yeah, good job.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right, Eric Galko, Director of Football Ops, Player Personnel for the Shrine Bowl. Again, part of the crew that came up with the idea for the XFL with these kickoff rules that were implemented today
really
by the
interesting.
NFL. Really
it's going to be fascinating to watch, especially his part about how it's going to change how you focus on special teams.